to get as much out of what I've already made, right? One of the ways you make money is you use things again and again creatively, okay? You don't always have to start from zero. In school, you always think of yourself as, I got to go to a blank piece of paper and start. When you're working, you're like, how can I get what I did some already? What do I have in my library that I own? I have copyright that I can modify to fit this assignment and charge the client as if I had started from zero. I know that sounds unethical, but it's not. You're not paying literally for the time, you're paying for the market value. Okay? You don't buy a car based on the number of hours it took some guy to build the car. You buy the car and what people are willing to pay for the car. See what I'm saying? It's the same thing with illustrations. A full color Photoshop file has a market value. If it took you 80 hours to do it, you made that many dollars per hour. If it took you 10 hours, you made a lot more money per hour. But the same sum, the same total. Same thing here. Okay, so my point is, I'm going to go back into my, I'm going to import again, but this time I'm going to import I'm not going to import the sequence. I'm going to take that off, and I'm going to hold down the command key, and I'm going to import just a couple of files. Now, I have to say I'm cheating here a little bit because I did this last night, and I know which ones I want, although I can't remember. So let's say this one. Okay, so now you see what I have is 3 separate files. Okay, so this is the first one, and I'm just going to drag them individually. I could drag them all at once, but I'm going to drag them individually onto the screen. Now, there is a place here. Oops, I dragged the wrong one. I'm sorry. There is a place somewhere in the preferences, and I don't want to take the time to look for it, where you can tell the software, when I bring a static image in, I need you to give me this many frames. Do you see what I'm saying? See, again, the little purple bar, what is that, violet, whatever that is there, lilac? Same thing that happened when I made the text. Notice it's the exact same size. So by default, it's just going to give you the number of frames that the preference is set to. It doesn't have any idea how long you want this thing on the screen. Okay? So I'm going to assume that I want first of all, I'm going to move the playhead back to where my title is so I can see it. And I'm going to assume I want these things on the screen for as long as I want my title. Now, I've moved my movie over here, and my static images are now by default going to the center. So I want to correct that, okay? Now, this is where we're really going to strain your eyes, because I see, Margaret, I see you back there squinting a little bit. This is going to be a tough one here. Tell me if you guys can see this. There's a little arrow next to every one of these layers. If I click it, it now opens up another menu, and if I click it again, I have another menu. Okay? This is literally where all the animation's happening. There's a tiny little stopwatch here, little icon for a stopwatch. When I click that, that basically says set a keyframe, just like in Maya. Okay? But before we start setting animation, let's look at something here. Okay, my movie, its position is at this value, 231, 253, okay? So if I want, let's say, this static image of the arm, okay, to be at the same place, let's just cheat a little bit. Let's make these guys, I'm going to extend the time that these static images are on the screen just so I can overlap things and have a point where I can see everything at once. That makes sense to y'all? So by overlapping them, I can now see it all, and then I'll change that when we're done. But instead of trying to eyeball where this thing is, what I can do is just use those values and change the position to match it. Okay, so now the very first image, okay, Let's make this even a little longer so you can see it even further. See, now the very first image is aligned perfectly with the first image in the animation. See how the static image doesn't move? Okay, so we're going to do the same thing for each of those real quick. The point I want you to get here is you can't, there is a quantitative, you have to use numbers. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. You can spend a lot of time thinking you can eyeball this thing and zoom in and get it really close, but you'll waste a lot of time. You're better off actually using the numeric value to guarantee yourself what you want. Oops. Okay, so now everybody's starting at the beginning. Okay, everybody's all registered. So the next thing I'm going to do, let's close that. While I'm here, I'm going to look at the opacity. So what I really would like to do is see this image of the arm flexed. And I'd actually like to go, that one's 31. All right, I'm going to live with that. There might have been a better choice here. I'm sorry, you have to, I can't live with that. I'm going to go back a little bit in time because that's a little too far.
Which images are we selecting? So like one fully extended, one thin flex, and then one
It's totally arbitrary. Okay. All I'm doing is looking at a way of trying to invite people to want to watch this movie. Right. So I'm going to kind of give them a read. And it's, I mean, you got to be honest here. We're trying to, you know, it's a pretty boring movie. So I'm just trying to help you understand. But that's the goal every time is what can I get into this opening page that someone's going to want to watch it. Because if it looks really boring and they got other stuff to do, they're going to go someplace else. So I'm just trying to get them a little bit of information. So I don't like the image I picked, the last one. So I'm going to get rid of it. So I'm not going to get rid of my library. I'm just going to get rid of it off the stage, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click on the layer and just hit delete. See, it's still in the library. Image 31 is still here. But it's not on the stage. And then real quickly, I'll just adjust this position so it matches the others. So again, using these images, it's not required. It's just, to me, often makes sense. You know, I used to waste time making the title and the image in the beginning and then go make the animation. I'm like, this is so stupid. Just take this stuff out of the movie and use it. Follow what I'm getting at? Okay, now what I'd like to do, again, just to make this a little more interesting, is I'd like to change the opacity. I'd like to essentially suggest the motion that's going to happen. Okay, so I'm going to take the image that's at the beginning and make it the least opaque. So I know from my order, this is number 1, so I'm going to change that. See this opacity down there? I'm going to change that to, let's say, 40. And then I'm going to go up the chain to the next image, and I'm going to change its opacity, let's say 55. So now you see, you kind of get the idea of the suggestion of like a strobe light, if you will. Okay, so we go through this. Now let me get these guys all lined up. So I'm looking to end right where the title ends. So I'm going to increase my scale a little bit so I can see that point better. And this is a thing, I honestly don't know a way, and I bet you Craig does. We'll ask Professor Foster when he gets here, or on Wednesday. Say again? Oh, okay. But there ought to be a way where I can actually numerically enter a frame there, but I don't know a way of doing that. So I always have to zoom in and get these very tight. So what happens? You know, there might be, and I just don't know where it is. It's hard for me to believe there's not, but I can't tell you where it is. Now the other thing, let's look at what's going to happen here for a second. So we're going to sit here, we're going to read that, that's wonderful. And then, see that like little, that abrupt transition here? In other words, after we've read that, we go into the, it's kind of abrupt. There's like that little gap. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is try to address that gap. Okay.